All right, so we did a part one for the first portion of the walk. What am I doing? I'm just advocating blood flow, right? I kind of do a systems check with my body. The more muscle that I put on, the more aerobic the activity becomes by nature, right? It creates one form of oxidative stress, but I keep it very low level so that it stays in this ultra low level conditioning state where I'm moving. And I try to reference back to this, albeit I haven't been walking lately nearly as much as I typically would in the past. And about right now is when I'm going to start going in and checking my body and just going, okay, I can get in and do some light sets of stiff leg deadlifts. Am I too sore from prior days training? Because I have worked out for 3 days straight, but I've kept those workouts down to kind of a bare minimum. So I'm going to breathe in, take a staggered step. So that was kind of an overall effective stretch there. Get a little further stretch and pop. Yeah. So some of us are so tight that we effectively have to bend over with resistance or force ourselves into a traditional sit and reach that really begins at that stretch of 15 or 16 if you look at the YMCA standards. And you should be at about a 21-inch reach. Of course, at this point, I'm not even reaching toward my toes, right? But what's happening is that I've contended for many years, especially as a professional trainer, in my time doing that everything is based on strength. In other words, I wouldn't even get into stretching until I'd worked on strengthening supported areas. Well, functionally, physiologically, the holistic aspect of the body, right? Of the bio bodysuit, if you will. Because kinetically, really tight areas from prior days training is going to invariably interfere in your nervous system, particularly like lattice work from the chirality, the positions of these opposing sides. right? We are a living wonder unto ourselves, just in physical manifestation, in the propensity to go on, but be forced to take up a right or left hand organization. We're forced into it. We don't have a choice, in other words. When we start to take on the characteristics of holistic or holism, where we're balanced in between, this is the depiction of the cross. This is really where people get lost in Buddhism, because Buddhism takes you to a neutrality. It doesn't fill you up. And people who have tried to go to this state of mind, Anton LaVey's daughter, she's Buddhist. Boy, when you see her in interviews, Jordan Peterson interviewed her. Oh, you can feel the witchcraft energy coming from her. And we all want to refute that just because you've been through these things doesn't mean that's who you are. The Lord Jesus Christ and all this stuff. And it's like, don't you realize that that's part of the prompt? Don't you realize that they sold you a bill of goods? I'm not telling you to refute that. But I'm telling you what they did is they even built in how you're going to see those pure aspects of yourself, right? They don't want you to come into power. They don't want you to recognize it. We're going to start over here. We're going more westerly. We'll go 10 the other way. 30, 40, 50, 60, 80. Yeah, I feel that tension in the low back. So you'll notice that when I do that, because I'm tight, good movement. I'm allowing kind of a rounding of the back at times. When I'm more warmed up, the back will stay more flat, right? This is so I'm stretching more hip than directly at the lower spine. Let me catch up for a second. Then I'm further trying to accentuate the concentric on the way up, right? Going back into extension, if you will, into neutral. And and as I'm going into flexion, I'm relaxing. Then I look up, involving my spinal system as I look up, engaging the erector spinae, the spinalis, as I'm pulling and correcting. And I go up a little faster. Invariably, you want to create a more explosive movement with all your concentric activities. But it's not just that, but that should be the performative base to an exercise program. That's, again, holistic in the sense that it involves all aspects of your physiology, considering all planes of motion, at least the three we know of, right? And then you do have inferences with horizontal, right? And you know, but you could always consider that when you're in anatomical neutral, right, position, right? Depending on if you're prone, supinated or prone, The hands show us a lot. And, you know, you might go into things like radial ulnar flexion, right? Like throwers, the pitchers exercise their arm, right? And then you start to match and marry the tempo or the time sequence of the actual operating movement that is the task that you are training. Right? I don't want to step on anything. Got the scale right over here. Well, I knew how to pitch, but my entire capsule here is unattached. It's not attached. I would need major rotator cuff surgery. Crappy parents, no insurance, greedy, not even hippies or quasi-hippies, strange people who were fringe pariahs, who were set up to be demonic, illusory parentage when they couldn't even support the abstracts of their own mind. My parents, they lived off of inheritance. They lived off inheritance. And even more so, the world just gifted them things. And they didn't earn it. Not by being good parents, not by accolades, not by education. Completely defiant, rebellious will, aberrant will, right? The making of them into their own gods. And then them coming up vastly short and being angry that they weren't given the king's supply, the king's ransom, where they offered nothing to anyone. Oh yeah, it feels better. I love the walking staggered aspect. That's 3 sets, you see. And I can begin to work those type of exercises in, whether or not I plan on formally exercising. I'm going to be doing a lot more. So if you point your toes in, you're stretching more of the long head. And where you get that stretch, you then go into this concentric portion, into flexion of the hamstring. Even though it doesn't appear, it's iso, right? Same, but the muscle is under stretch, it's under tension. And if you point the feet out, you'll feel more of the semitendinosus, membranosus, and short head. You get more into that when you do curls, hamstring curls, or even what I'd like to be able to do. So I feel that all in the hips, right? That's how tight my hips are, how fucked up my hips are. They're displaced. I have a posterior pelvic tilt. And squats, man, those are the remedy. You can only do them correctly or you'll get a breakdown. When you go into heavy squats, you can't advance and go ever higher in your squat until you are fucking loading, axial loading, and doing it correctly. The squat teaches you everything you need to know, really. That's why people get immersed in exercise, right? So the only thing that I would say would be a great accompaniment to that and allow you to finish both your lower back and your hamstring work all the way down into your popliteal plantaris, right? Behind your knee, is to effectively get yourself a 35-degree or hyperextension and to begin to do weighted hyperextensions and eventually doing them with your arms out and getting that cross-lateral support. There was a time when you could barely notice the difference between the two sides, but the breakdown over the years, getting older, and also I do believe that there is a critical issue not being supported with a dysfunctional aspect of the carnivore diet. I got to a place where I was really well trained. I wouldn't be able to train very much or for very long. I found that strange. The more I walked, my thighs got down to under 21 inches at 6 feet tall. And I was eating a lot of food. I was eating thousands of calories. There's a point where all the fascia, you'll see in past videos where I was on carnivore, every bit of connective tissue was gone in my face to where I became really unrecognizable. My ears and the cartilage, and I was doing things like, looking at the glycine aspects and taking in collagen, which they've really informally, through a holistic totality of the fitness industry, which is just a big farce, and nutritional sciences, kind of refuted. If you look broadly at collagen, right? Like, you're better off just taking glycine, getting your blood serine levels correct. And I've seen amazing things happen with trimethylglycine. And I believe that this is an orthomolecular prompt, a reset, because I think that amino acids work like octave notes or tones, particularly when you look at aromatic amino acids, right? As these sort of solfeggio type signatures, if you will, right? And you could get into ultraviolet, infrared, but you could also get into harmonics and hertz levels there, which Jack Cruz gets into a little bit, but he's such an ornery bastard. And look at his claims and how he is so rapidly aging, right? It's almost like he's at odds with the corporeal and the spiritual. Like, he sees only this, and he feels this in sort of freedom and enlightenment, right? But at the same time, he is rapidly aging, that guy. Rapidly. It happens to us all. But when you make claims that aromatic amino acids are the saving grace and you don't need to exercise, and then you look like this fat ball of rapidly aging shit, and your disposition and your temperament is shit, you're preaching the truth, but you're going to this fanatical point where you're going, all you need is to take in sunlight. And the last thing you need is to do that, man, because the sun is toxifying you. This is not the sun that you think it is. Look more into Crow 7.7. Look at the positing and the postulation of an artificial sun and an actual sun behind that. It's weird, right? The distance of the sun 93 million miles, AU, 93 AU, astronomical units. It's weird. Who knows how far it is? Who knows if the moon is a distance between, 232,000 miles, give or take, right? Who knows? It's just fucking hard to say. It's really fucking hard to say. Or what the speed of light is, What is it, 183 miles per second? 1,000 miles per second? Who fucking knows? Who knows what the fuck's going on here? Right? There are really no materialistic constants occurring here. Let's see how I feel. Yeah. All right, so we got the big boys here. And people may think that 55-pound dumbbells aren't much. What are you doing with them? What are you doing with your 30s? So you'll notice that I'm concurrently going back to certain exercises. This is essentially what I do in the other room when I have the camera there, where I do a set, I come in here and I do the real workout, which is the walk. The walk is the real workout. You're also better getting used to standing exercises. I was about to buy a bench, and I probably will at some point. Let's just face it, whether there is a God or not, whether God allows it, they want you to supplicate and bow down, capitulate to whatever the fuck is giving you stuff and postures itself as a God. It ain't my God. And then it wants to take credit for you realizing yourself through all the breakdown and pain that you came to on your own. You really did. If you're still alive, it couldn't take you out. It couldn't, because you're a viable aspect of the number in the number system. Whereas other people, i.e. Charlie Kirk, they made themselves obsolete, okay? They did. By design, they made themselves obsolete. All right, we got a little recovery going on here, an active recovery. All right, we allow this nice transition back to an aerobic state. we're creating and generating more oxygen demand to replace excess post-oxygen consumption, or epoch, right? And we're going to go into yet another set of said presses. I definitely feel a lot of pain, but the beauty is I'm always surprised I can do any. And let's try a set. This will be fun. We've trained a little shoulders for the past 3 days, so. Oh yeah, that was good. Yeah, they're still sore. I'm glad I got those 50. That's something to work on. Needed that. Like, believe it or not, I can do cheat side laterals with that weight. It's feeling extremely heavy today. Not sure why. I think it's the fatigue from the low back, the hamstrings, that I'm isolating the shoulders that are already sore. Perfect though. Very close to the tension, the resistance I feel when I'm partially going into kind of an upper chest TRX inverted type push-up, but where I have my feet, my knees are bent way too much, but we'll see how we improve in that exercise. So right now, this is what you call systemic. You could say this is a form of circuit training because I'm going into an active recovery, and I'm also walking. So I'm involving primarily the lower body to make up for all that oxidative stress through excess post-oxygen consumption. A lot of people would say, no, you're getting it all wrong. That's the lactic acid, and you're not even training hard enough. And it's like, oh yeah, I am. Yeah, I am. My body's very deconditioned. And so primarily where I'm taking that from is I've walked well over 2,000 miles indoor, and I've charted 1,400 of those miles, not charting the past 5 months of walking. And some of those months were going back to higher. All right, we're feeling a nice recovery. So in other words, I'm in bad shape, okay? And it's always been that lactic acid system, that midpoint, that's been the hardest for me. And that's the area you really want to work on. All right. I'm always worried, am I damaging my shoulders more than helping them? I'm going to need another minute because that area is so weak. And when I'm doing a lot, I went over this yesterday. When I'm doing in the line of force, when I'm doing heavy presses, my shoulder press just gets weak. I used to just go in with a 245s, 135 pounds, and I'd be like, even if I can get 10 or 12, that's enough. But if I prioritized the military press, the overhead shoulder press, right, which is the other form of, right, the overhead press, I oftentimes just combine that in with the clean when I'm talking about Olympic lifting. All right, let's do this. Let's see what we can do. One is something, right? Could have gone more. So that was more kettlebell style, right? And I performatively love kettlebells. But we got a little rhythm going in there. It wasn't just from a dead position. So we got 2 extra reps. Let's recover and see what we can do. So that's more functional, right? So we have a total of what? 3 sets. Should I do a drop set? Should I try a couple of reps with 9 extra pounds on each side with totes? 64-pound dumbbells. I know I could do it in the gym if I was seated for reps, but quite honestly, I would only be coming back down to about right here, like just below parallel, but really at the ears. And then I would play with pressing back and pressing straight up overhead, kind of getting a little different fascicle firing. That feels like enough though. It does, it feels like enough. But I don't advance much in my shoulders, and I need to, you know, and because of the injury, my nervous system is so apprehensive at doing anything that it's always been an area of contention. My body's going, you could do it. You could do 5. I'm wondering if I could do 1 or 2 with the area of fatigue that I'm in with 64. Just curious. Damn, this makes me nervous. Yeah, it really does. Yeah, that was 2. That was good. That was nice. It got me working for it. Yeah, if it wasn't so unstable and funky, I could have got 4. It's necessary. to just feel it and to do it, no matter how ugly and cheaty it looks. I don't want these to leak, because they have been leaking a little. So what I might do on that next set, so that's 4 sets, is combine 2 sets where I'm doing the 55s and then doing a superset. It's actually a drop set. I've actually seen that whole weeder thing, and it's confusing. But supersets are, I believe, I've heard people say agonist to antagonist, right? Supersetting biceps with triceps. But I've also heard that they have used supersets in just not allowing total recovery to take place, but then you could call that pre-fatigue, and going on to, like, say 3 different bicep exercises. Kind of crosses over into Mike Menser high intensity training, right? Territory, where you're trying to train from various angles. But that puts a tremendous amount of stress on my elbows. Any presses like that, right? Which makes standing up better, because you get to the point where you can go through full-on flexion, right? Or extension, right? But you're concentrically going through the motion with your scapula, right? Which would still be in its form really extension, overhead extension. All right, we kind of got the nervous system's a little more calmed down. We're dropping it down almost 10 pounds. I think we're going to pre-fatigue with the 55s and primarily just focus on doing a set with these 30s again. Or would it be advantageous to just do 40s, right? Will the 30s be too light? I don't know. Only one way to find out. Okay. So we're not gonna have any sort of defeatist attitude. We're just gonna do, if it's 1, if it's none, then we're gonna drop down. All right. So let's try it. Let's get these bad boys ready to go. Don't want to break through any glass. Can never anticipate, right, what's going to happen. All right. I'm feeling light. Something like that. So I obviously underestimated the press. Feeling that stress in the hips. We're gonna recover first. Right. Recover. Yeah, so 75s could be nice. I now realize I could have got 4 or 5 with 64 pounds. It was the awkwardness of those bags. I'm not even sure I didn't puncture one of the water containers, and there's not a slow leak, so I got backup ones, but doing the best I can. May go back and doing that alternating overhead punch that I was doing that I really like. So this is how you turn a walk into a functional movement, right? Exercise modality. That's already like 5. That's 8 sets right there. I've been dropping off triceps a little bit because I wanted to do what I may go into now, or for a couple sets in this workout. I feel like I still wanted to try to do a set of alternating punch presses, right? Where I'm punching upwards, extending upwards. Really, with this exercise, it's like pick a rep range and go with that, right? So let's try it. I'm gonna pick 8. I'm picking 8 reps, 4 and 4, to kind of finish it up, and then we go from there. Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's good. Oh. That's tough. I'm done with those. Painful. I imagine those look pretty painful, right? Yeah. All right. Well, those 55s deserve a warm welcome, right? Damn. Yeah. I feel affirmed in the assumption, right? Because I was playing with canceling these when the other one wasn't showing up so long and going, maybe I should get 65s, 70s. But when you're functionally playing with them, it's plenty. It really is. It's plenty. Oh man. Yeah, we made a workout out of it. Feels like 24-hour fitness. Off, what is it, up in Sacramento? Is it Thousand Oaks or? Kind of hated going in there, but it was always like an energy where it's like, you could do this. You can tear this up. You can own this. Fat walruses standing at the gate. Obese female manager that looks like she chain smokes and eats donuts. 3 stomachs, 400 plus pounds. The manager. It was such a terrible joke, a terrible FU in the face of fitness and nutritional sciences and everything that 24-hour fitness was supposed to stand for. And I saw it. I was invited to the major annual managerial meeting where it was opened up to me and I could decide, where do you want to go with this? I was more ripped, more ready. She's like, you're in better shape than anyone here. I'm introducing you for a reason. You could fucking do this. You have more education. You're ready to go. And I'm looking at it going, these guys are so fake with their fake ass tans. She didn't realize that I'd already been through it. That everybody would be emulating the straw man, the Burning Man, the effigy for years to come. Right? So I have something in my shoe. And gotta take that out. I think it's in my sock. And then try to tackle what I was talking about, which is maybe hitting a few triceps, seeing that, I'm thinking at this point 75s would be, anything below that would be kind of redundant, working backwards, right? But after all that, our 55's warranted for full, complete reps. Because the triceps want to work, okay? So this will get the tris from a different angle. Let's try it. Let's see if 55-pound dumbbell will do it. So I really could just keep going. I was trying not to autocorrect the pain in my shoulder, but 75s, that gives it a little stretch, but nowhere near does it do justice. However, and the base isn't wide enough to really get a grip on it. Maybe we'll try that again with the totes and see what we can do with that. Adding on 18 pounds. I don't know. It's really hard to say, right? Let's see. So already I can tell that if I'm gonna do this, I'll have to be able to put my hands all the way through. Here. That was definitely comical, right? But you can't say I haven't tried. Comical hour here. I'm curious if this wouldn't just pop up on me, right? It's way too awkward, but it's possible. All right, that's a workout.